okay from folks like them. We're back for the last session called The Mixes. We have Rod Lewis, who is the owner of the 515 in Nashville, Tennessee, and the producer and studio manager, Chip Hardy. Welcome back, guys. We've had some great information that came from these first sessions. The very last thing, after the singer has sung your song, which we dealt with in the last session, come the mixes for the song. So I'll kick it off here. When do you think, when should the writer expect the mixes of their song?
That depends on our mixing engineer's schedule. We like to be able to turn them around in 7 working days. We really can't promise. We can't promise that. Sometimes it takes 4 or 5 days. Sometimes the singer is going to be out of town for the times when we would schedule him, and so it's the next week before that singer can sing. Sometimes the mixing engineer is working on a project and he can't get to the stuff for 4 or 5 days. So we like to turn it around within 7 working days. Sometimes it's longer than that, and y'all just have to bear with us on that because a lot of that's out of our control.
Rod, anything to add to that, or?
Not really. I think, just be patient. I mean, you're going to get it back.
Yeah, I know. I'm always anxious to get them back, but
the mixing, it's worth the wait, I think. Yeah. Bobby is fantastic and Jesse's fantastic, and it's worth the wait.
How are they sent? How are the mixes sent to the writer or artist?
Dropbox. We send them a link to a Dropbox account where they get all the 3 separate mixes. Hopefully they're downloading all of their audio tracks and everything, and session files, and because we don't keep them, and people will call back and I did this song 3 years ago, and I can't find my tracks. And I'm like,
and that's important.
About it, yeah.
That's really important because I've had some songs that were picked up by film and television, and sometimes with film and television, they want more than just that final mix. They want sometimes just the instrument tracks. Sometimes they'll want you to break out stems, like would just be bass and drums from the session track. They'll want all these things. So you really do need to archive those, make sure you have them when people ask you for them.
Please download your tracks and save them. Please, I can't stress that enough. And Chip can tell you this. I mean, we send 3 different mixes. So
lately, I noticed you started sending a lead vocal mix by itself too, which is nice.
We do. Bobby has started sending the acapella vocal mix, but you get our clients get a mix, which is along with the vocal, the background vocals, the whole thing. It's your little mini record.
Right.
A mix that we call a television track. That's a mix without the lead vocal, because there are some of the writers that will take that CD, will burn a CD or whatever, and go to a club somewhere, and they will actually sing the lead vocal,
right?
But it's got the background vocals on it, so it still sounds like a record.
And it comes in handy.
It does, and then that third mix is a mix without any vocals. And here again, like you were talking about, particularly for film and television, there may be a bed, there may be maybe 8 bars in that bridge, or a little bed in the verse that would just work perfectly under somebody walking on the beach,
right.
Scene or in a TV scene or whatever, but the vocal would not work with it in there. So that instrumental track is extremely important too.
Next thing I thought about was, what if something is not quite right in the mix? Let's say your vocal in the second verse needs to come up a little bit. How does the writer approach that to request that from you?
Go ahead, Rod.
Well, I mean, they just send us an email requesting a mix fix, and we give them one. So you get a song back, and like you said, vocal needs to come up a little bit in the second verse. Turn the bass down, turn the bass off, whatever.
No one's going to do that, Rod.
There's all kinds of, but you're allowed one, and then after that, it starts eating into where we have to pay the mix engineer to really go in and change things, So
then the writer should expect to pay for after that initial fix, and they've listened, and maybe they even have a couple vocal lifts. If they did that, that would probably be okay. But if they needed something past that, it's probably going to have to pay for that, right?
Go in, change parts and things like that, because that's just so much time to do,
And I mean, we'll get writers that they'll say, well, I rewrote the second verse to this song. Well, that means we've got to have the singer. The singer has to come back in,
right?
And the singer probably is going to charge us, if not for a full vocal, they're going to charge us something.
They're charging for a full vocal,
and we're going to have to pass that charge along with our engineer and studio costs along. So it's going to be probably more expensive than the writer wanted it to be or thought it could be. The other thing is that we do not do any changes that involve editing for free.
Mm-hmm.
A writer may say, I've gotten lots of great response from this song, but they feel like the turnaround or the first solo is too long, and we need to shorten that. Well, that requires editing, and it can require 30 minutes worth of work, or it can require 3 hours worth of work if it can even be done.
Right.
And, that is not considered a mix tweak.
Right.
That's not considered something that we have the engineers do.
Right.
And that goes all the way back to the beginning. That should have been discussed in
the pre-pro meeting.
Right.
And people, I would find it hard to believe that somebody's not accepting your song. I love your song if it just didn't have these two measures in it.
Right.
I mean, I find that impossible to believe, so.
The other thing is, I think these days, even though some people might not be technically great at computer things, I know there are so many stereo editing programs that if your intro, for example, was a little long, you may be able to cut that yourself, or you may be able to make small moves yourself that don't really affect the song. And the cool thing about it is the songs are played to a click track, so they're so on that those edits I've found over the years, although I've rarely needed to do them, are just easy to do. They really are.
They can be. It just depends. I mean, what the example Chip was giving, in the middle of a song, you're going to have the room mics and the overhead mics on the drums and everything. I mean, that has to be really paid attention to, or you're going to hear that.
Right.
That splice right there. I hate to use a tape term, but it's going to sound like that.
Right.
Oh, that was a punch. And you're not going to be happy.
And whenever you're cutting anything out or adding anything, you have to take into consideration it's not just drums.
Right.
There's an electric guitar player playing a part. There's an acoustic player playing a part, a bass player playing a part. All that stuff has to match and sound flawless.
Yes. And they're not just cutting off of the drums. They're extending over top of the bar and of the measure, and so you're not going to be able to do it sometimes, but which makes it even more difficult for you guys to go back and do something like that. It's almost like, well, we should have done this in pre-pro, or
that's why that pre-pro meeting is so important, because
I mean, and some people could do that. Some people are good enough with Pro Tools or whatever. I mean, our engineers are, obviously.
Yeah.
If it can be done, those dudes can do it,
Yeah.
But I mean, they'll tell you, this is going to sound a little weird. You really don't want that in your recording, I mean, at least I don't. I don't want that in my recordings, so.
Well, through each section of this, from the work demo to production meeting, pre-production meeting, to the recording session, to the working with a singer, and now we've ended it up with the mixes, which is the final thing that you get. And hopefully through all of these sessions, a writer or artist will get a really great idea of what happens. And I also know that Chip's been doing a lot of interviews lately with people, the band members and the singers, and I'm sure those are going to continue. And that should give people a really great idea of exactly what happens and sort of alleviate any stress or anything about sending their song to you guys. And I can speak from personal experience, and Chris and I can. It's like we feel every time we send a song, we just feel great about it because we know it's going to be taken care of by you guys. And I think that's the thing, like Rod, I've heard you say many times, these songs are your babies, and they are,
Yeah. You're trusting us with your baby. So
yeah. And they couldn't be in better hands than Chip Hardy and Rod Lewis, that's for sure. Chip, do you have any closing comments here?
Well, you and Chris have been here enough that the musicians, you know the guys. And I thought it was a great idea on Rod's part to say, hey, let's introduce these guys a little bit more to our songwriter and artist clients so they can get to know personality-wise what these people are all about, where they're coming from, like where they grew up and how they grew up and why they are the way they are.
Right.
And, I think it's important that people know the people that they're putting their music into their hands.
Right.
And, I think it's extremely important. And bravo to Rod for coming up with that idea.
Well, both of you guys and all those great players that I've worked with through the years, they're friendly and friends both, and they're so giving of their talent to your songs. And I think people, sometimes have the wrong idea when you say session musician, like they're just going to walk in and they don't really care about what they're playing. They're just picking up a paycheck, or they're going to put in an hour or whatever. And that's the farthest thing from the truth. And that is the reason why, actually, is a little from me here at the end, why I've worked there for 10 plus years or so, because that's not the way it is. It's like they love what they're doing, like you guys said, and it has paid off so much on all the songs that I've sent there.
And they all want to do. And there's been times where every musician in there has come up to me at some point after a particularly maybe hard session. And, it's hard to be on all the time,
Right.
And they've said to me on the side, hey, man, send me that. I want to replay this at my house, and I'll send it back to you. Now, how cool is that?
Yeah, it's very cool. Yeah.
And a lot of times it's a particularly hard guitar riff or something like that, and they just felt like in the time allotted, they got it, but they, man,
Right.
if I could have a half hour alone with it, I will nail this. And
Yeah.
they have done it. And man, it's such a cool thing. I think that our guys do, well, not our guys, but the guys we, what I'm saying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I think the other thing is it comes down to you guys are great people yourselves, and you've picked great people to work with, and that means more in the long run than what kind of equipment you're playing and all that other stuff that people are so focused on.
Yeah, man, these guys could play through anything and make it sound good.
I
That's
believe.
what makes a good musician. I mean, you should be able to pick up something and make music.
Right.
And so goodness.
Well, hey guys, I really appreciate, it's been like all of these sessions that we've done. I'm sure people will get a lot out of them, and hopefully, they'll give you a call and give you a shot at recording their songs, because I know I've always been more than thrilled with them, and I think other people will too.
Great.
Yeah, this has been great, and hopefully it's been enlightening.
Okay. Thanks, Chip. Thanks, Rod. See you soon.